It's not like the loss of those power is not having some extraordinary effects inside of Twitter itself. And we're beginning to see that with some leaked audio that Project Veritas got its hands on from a Twitter all hands on deck meeting. Just look at the freak out happening inside of Twitter headquarters right now. Let's take a listen.
Elon made it clear in public that a large part of the reason he bought the platform was because of our moderation policies and disagreements in how we deal with health. This puts Twitter service and trust and safety, as well as anybody who cares about health on the platform, in a very difficult position.
I believe Twitter grows as a service, allows for more people to use the product and have a better experience because we're able to make the conversation on Twitter be safe, because we have built tools, processes for people to be able to feel safe and control their experiences. I believe that there is a lot of work we have to do to continue making that better. Sometimes that means more thoughtful moderation. Sometimes that means making things simpler. Sometimes that means changing product incentives to be able to solve problems through products sometimes instead of policies.
So the two people that you heard speaking there are Leslie Berland. So she is the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer at Twitter. And the second person is Parag Agrawal, who is the CEO of Twitter. Now, to be fair, yeah, for now, and hopefully not for long. To be fair, Leslie claims that she was reading a question to Parag Agrawal from the staff. That being said, I think that it's still an important view into the company, which is that they're like, what about health? And by that they mean COVID misinformation. Now, nobody's going to say there isn't COVID misinformation on Twitter, but we all remember the lab leak story, which was censored off Twitter in February of 2020, and hence why a lot of the content regime around all of this is completely ridiculous, that they've banned an extraordinary number of accounts for going against the COVID narrative, which actually ended up being true. So that obviously is a big problem. But also, I think that what it shows you is that inside of Twitter itself, and this will get to the story that we'll eventually talk about, there is a complete freak out on the side who are the most censorious. You know, we've seen the reports of the executives crying, like I said, all about to get to that. But I think that this is fully represented.
Could you, Saagar?
I know, I'm so sorry. Fully represented within that clip is the domineering mindset of we control the ability in order to make people feel safe. Now, look, I want people to feel safe. It's a very important thing. However, whenever you use that type of rhetoric, which is what Parag Agrawal is reiterating, it comes back to his original declaration of 2020, whenever he was asked about, should you abide by the First Amendment? And he said, our job is not to abide by the First Amendment. Right. It's to make people feel safe on the platform. And making people feel, quote unquote, safe on the platform is just opening the door to accusations, BS accusations of harassment, of something else. And once again, I don't think harassment is good. I think if you dox somebody and you reveal their personal information, that should be taken down. However, if you criticize somebody, that is now being painted as harassment.
Yes.
And that is being used as a guise in order to take down accounts. So that's a very, very good and clear view into the company itself as to how the censors and the people who really agree with that and created that mindset are exactly those who are most upset about the Elon thing.
I think the most interesting thing that Parag Agrawal, the current CEO, said there is he said, you know, sometimes the way to deal with these questions of safety is through content moderation. Sometimes it's through changing the rules, making things simpler. But the thing that I thought was most interesting that he said is he indicated sometimes it's through making changes to the product. Mm-hmm. And so oftentimes when we think about, you know, the health of our public square, kind of the easiest thing to go to is which things are being censored, which things are being taken down, how is this being applied? But actually, what really shapes our discourse perhaps more than anything is the design of the platforms themselves.
Definitely.
And oftentimes too, you know, those surfacing algorithms that we keep talking about, which just determines like, what's being basically buried and no one is likely to see, and what is being served to people time and time and time again. So one simple example that we experience all the time here on YouTube is, you know, CNN and these other mainstream cable news platforms, they used to get no views on YouTube.
Yeah,
like there was no organic interest in their content. And I think that that has been very much proven out by the colossal failure of CNN Plus, that there just isn't that much organic interest in, I'm gonna go seek out a specific CNN video. But because YouTube, listen, we don't know what's going on in their algorithm because it's completely non-transparent, but it seems very obvious that what they've decided to do is to prop up these platforms and just serve their videos relentlessly to basically everybody who shows up on YouTube. And so, you know, some percentage of those are gonna suffer through the video that was just placed in front of them, or it's on autoplay and they don't even realize it's playing. And so that ends up propping up those products, and then you don't put in front of them independent media creations, because that's not maybe as safe in your perspective from an advertiser standpoint. So those sorts of things that are happening in the background, or even just the design of Twitter in terms of, you know, being able to retweet things, being able to like things, the length of the characters themselves, those decisions, which are made by, you know, high-level executives at Twitter, have a massive impact on the way that our discourse ultimately unfolds. That's why the culture on these different platforms, if you guys are on a couple different social media platforms, you know the culture at each of them feels totally different. Kyle is not on Instagram, so he's been shocked by the fact that when I post things on Instagram, most of the comments are actually nice.
Oh yeah, but overwhelmingly
it's like
positive.
Earnest
95,
and sweet
100%, yeah.
and kind. I mean, not 100%, but really the overwhelming bulk. And it's because of the differences between those platforms. Totally different cultures have been created. So it is a complex conversation ultimately in how you craft these platforms, but it matters a lot. And transitioning into our next segment, that's why these people are so powerful and why they not only should be held to account, but absolutely must be held to account, because the decisions that they are making are having a profound impact on our democracy. And listen, you guys know our position here. Ultimately, there's a lot that's said that tries to make this more complex than it ultimately is. But if you believe in free speech, we have a First Amendment right here in this country. You know, people should be able to express their opinions, even when it's messy, even when it's complicated, even when it's offensive, all of those things in the interest of having a healthy democracy. If Twitter is now a vital part of the public square, those same rules that have been part of our country for generations and which are argued over and fought over and where are the lines and the boundaries and all of that in the courts, that's what should apply there as well. Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.